Well, I'm here with Marc Lucero from USC men's tennis, the associate head coach, and he's here today to talk about his experience traveling in a similar opportunity, taking junior players over to Europe to train, to compete, and explore new cities. So, Marc, so happy to have you here. Would love to just hear a little bit about your background of tennis and where you're at now and where you came from.
I'm in my second season at the University of Southern California. I'm super excited to be here. This was a place growing up and even as a college player or after college, I always wanted to be at USC. My best friend played baseball here. I had so many friends who went here, and I never thought the timing would work out, especially after coaching 14, 15 years on the professional tour. I just kind of thought it was one of those things that was never going to happen. Timing worked out great as I was looking to exit the tour and spend more time with my family. Happy to be here. It also allows me to spend time with junior players when I'm not with the USC men's team, and think about when the parents ask me how I would sort of advise them to take the steps through development. I'm able to see the game from a lot of different points of view, from the pro space, from the college space, and from the junior developmental space. And I think that segues into what you guys do, because there's so much value to getting out of your little bubble. There's so much value to learning, how to be comfortable when you're a little bit uncomfortable. Maybe, you go to Europe and maybe the Wi-Fi is not as fast as you expect. TikTok's not loading as quickly, and you need to sort of look around and be present and exist where you are. And there's so much opportunity for growth, and that's why I think it's so awesome what you guys are doing.
How would you suggest that a kid get the most out of an experience like an Atlas tennis trip? What does it take to fully immerse yourself in an opportunity like this?
I think it takes a really open mind. I think it takes a willingness to try new things, to try new foods, to step a little bit out of your comfort zone. Not it's not a total free for all, but I think to be willing to try a couple new things and continue to learn about what you like, or continue to appreciate how things might be different from what you're used to. And that can be a step as small as going into a red clay court open-minded, or it could be trying some delicacy when you're in a new city, or walking through a market where you're used to going on Amazon and getting something on Prime delivered in 2 hours. It's a different way of life, and I think besides making you more well-rounded as a person and more adaptable, I think it helps you appreciate what you have at home as well.
Yeah, in that perspective, that global kind of broadened worldview is so key, not only as an individual, but also as an athlete. So in terms of kind of how does that perspective and growth translate to becoming a better tennis player? How have you seen that through juniors you've worked with in Europe?
You see that not just in juniors, but you see that in the pros as well. Like tennis and life are mirrors of each other. And tennis, I think, is a vehicle to develop better human beings. And ultimately, I think better quality human beings do better in tennis, because tennis exposes you. There's so many opportunities to mess up. Every time you hit a ball, that's a chance to fail is the wrong word, but it's a chance to mess up. It's always going to be how you respond to these difficult things. That's going to give you the best chance to have success in the long run. And I think as a young player, if you can get used to that and get used to being in new environments, being used to maybe falling short and having to figure out solutions. If you're a kid from, New York, and you're used to playing quick indoors, and you hit 1 or 2 shots and you win the point, and all of a sudden you're playing a playing a boy from Spain and it's 100 degrees and you're on red clay and you have to win 10, 12 shots. Like, that resilience is going to help you be better as a player. And aside from just learning new tactics or learning how to put your game towards a new kind of opponent or a new kind of game style, the characteristics that are developed, the stuff inside, the fight, the resilience, the problem solving ability, all those things, I think, are ultimately going to be things that determine how successful you might or might not be as a player.
Yeah. So well said. And I also think for Atlas, which is unique in your experiences, we travel as a team. So you're not out there on your own in these experiences. Again, you're out of your comfort zone, you're in a new country, but you're not alone. You're with a team, you're building that camaraderie. As a college coach, you've experienced kind of having to turn an individual sport into a team sport. What is that importance of building team chemistry, and why is that appealing to go on an Atlas trip to experience that young?
Oh, it's way more fun. First of all, if you're out there on a clay court and I'm, myself or whoever coach is out there, and we're asking, Ruby, let's go practice sliding. Like you're more likely to go try out there and slide, and then maybe fall and start laughing when you see your teammate do the same thing. It's just, I think it makes the environment more fun. I think it makes people more willing to try new things. I think it helps make the trip more productive, period, because regardless of your result, there's people there to practice with, there's people there to cheer you on. You can sort of let go of your match, I think, a little more quickly, because when your match is done, you can go see how your friend's doing in their match. And it just, going through these things, I think there's so much of like an adventure aspect to it when you're experiencing new things with friends and not alone. I remember when I was in college, I went to school in Boston. There were two other guys on my team from San Diego. So when we were in snowstorms, it was like the three of us San Diego guys, like experiencing this thing, like, together. And it was a blast. Whereas like, if I'm by myself, like, I'd be like, oh, snow, this is cool. But when you're there with friends, I think it makes the experience a lot more memorable. And you have more, stuff you can make jokes about. And there, by the end of the trip with these players, I'm sure there's these inside jokes. Oh, remember when so-and-so, like, thought they lost their passport or whatever it is, and Ben had it in his backpack and he had no idea, like that. Those are things that they're going to remember, for years.
Yeah. And what's great is not only are you there as a team, but you also get to play some doubles, which is not honestly as common for juniors in the US. And so when we go on these trips, you're playing mixed doubles, you're playing men's or women's doubles. And in college, that's totally a part of the game. Why do you think it's a nice addition for these Atlas trips to encourage us to play doubles, to develop that strategy, because it's something you do in college?
Oh, it's huge. It's a huge part of the match, the college doubles. And so having opportunities to be exposed to doubles, to learn how to play with new people. I know in some of these trips, sometimes you'll play with the local ones in doubles, and you learn how to get past the language barrier and talk about tactics or whatever it is. But again, like that level of adaptability, I think we keep coming to that word, like being adaptable, being able to figure out how to, be cohesive with someone you might not be familiar with. Those things will serve you as a player for years, long beyond college tennis as well.
Yeah. And for you, kind of, what does the most successful tennis player look like? And that can be not just wins and losses, but how do you define success for a player on an Atlas trip?
What a question. I've always been most proud of my players, honestly, like in the darkest moments when they show things that we agree to value together. And so I think someone who's successful is someone who, at the end of the trip, their parents pick them up at the airport and they say, man, like that was fun. And like, what was the best part? Honestly, like the whole thing. Like there's, then there's nothing, if they can say there's nothing I would do differently, then I think that's like a super successful trip. And these are going to be friends that they share something with for, like I said, like for years and years and years. I think that's what makes a successful trip.
We prioritize having a lot of college, former or current college coaches and college players chaperone our trips and be the 24/7 kind of supervisors. What do you think their perspective as former or current college coaches and college players bring to the trip that kids might not have from their local clubs?
Yeah, I think they're able to really help the players understand maybe where they need to get to from where they are. And that can be a little bit of a gray space that a coach who works only with juniors might not be as familiar with, especially the game's constantly changing, at every level. And like I've been out of pro tennis maybe for 2 years. And so I might not be totally up to speed with where the pro game is now versus when I left if I were to jump back into coaching pros. I mean, fortunately, I do television, so I follow it a little bit. But like, so for people who maybe aren't in college tennis day in, day out, they probably have an idea of like general concepts that are still applicable. But the way that the game changes, like if your finger is on the pulse or you're just recently exited from it, I think you're able to help the kids a lot more effectively understand the direction of their development needs to continue to go.
Great. And I know you said you've been broadcasting a bit and you've also just been at these pro tournaments. We take our kids to Grand Slams like Wimbledon, the US Open, and not a Grand Slam, but the Swiss Open in Gstaad. Why is it an amazing opportunity for junior players to see pro tennis at the highest level and then interact with players. What's the energy like at these tournaments?
Well, the energy is off the charts, first of all. I mean, the US Open, you know, maybe the most well-run tournament in the world the last 2 years. What you can see, I think, for the kids is, I think it shows you that, I think anytime you see professional sports like in person, it shows you that like these people are real. I think there can be a disconnect between, you know, when you see pro athletes on TV and they seem like these superhumans, but when you see them up close, you see them sweating, you see them like trying hard, you see them like missing or messing up, like they're just people like you and me. And I think for some people, I think especially like the players that maybe aspire to be pros one day, like as they get closer, seeing that they're like real and that they're human beings, I think is really, really important and like really good motivation. For players that might be newer to the game, I think being exposed to that too can give them an appreciation of the difficulty, like of the journey, and maybe a little bit more like of an impetus to like, okay, like, I gotta buckle down, I really got to work hard and, you know, see where I might go in this game. But I think there's nothing that replaces seeing pro tennis in person, and I think it can also really help people fall in love with the game just because of how exciting these are, like as events, not just as, you know, as one-off tennis matches.
And lastly, what would you say to a prospective junior tennis family who is considering an Atlas trip to go play tennis in Europe, to compete, to explore? What would be your message to them?
I would really encourage them to look strongly at it. I think the growth possibilities for their child as an individual, I don't think there's many ways to do that if you have just kind of like a regular summer at home. I think getting out of your comfort zone, I think as a human being, first of all, and as a player, secondly, like playing on clay, playing on different surfaces, I think those things facilitate and enhance the developmental process. But I think that the growth as a person, I think is probably unmatched, and especially like knowing the staff like behind Atlas, like I do, like knowing the people behind it, I can vouch that these are really like quality people who care about kids and who want to deliver like a really top-notch product.